All right, guys, what is up? Welcome in Friday episode of GC Live as we close out. I don't know, man, maybe one of the just most crazy weekends in Gamecock media. I would say, like recent history, man. We had Steve Fink retiring. We have multiple changes on the Gamecock media landscape. We have commitments coming in for football, commitments coming in for basketball, surprise commitments from women's basketball that I don't think anybody had on their radar as Dawn Staley kind of closed out that roster. And here we sit, man, just closing out the week to talk about a bit of all that. But first, let's talk about our guy, Clint Hammond, CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. NMLS number 71597. Of course, like we always tell you, we don't even have to go over it anymore, man. If you're in the market for a home, call Clint today, text Clint today, and just hit him up, man. He's going to walk you through this entire process.
Yep, and also, speaking of hitting up people, hit up our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet, Fairey, ferrychevrolet.com, or 803-937-4531. Been in business since 1926, y'all. So if you're looking for a new or used vehicle, looking for a new ride, thinking about a new ride, hit them up. Ferry Chevrolet, Joseph Ferry, fourth generation dealer, great friend of the program here on GC Live. We appreciate their support. All we ask, just give them some support. Make them your first call or your first website visit if you're looking for a new or used vehicle. They are in Orangeburg, conveniently located between Columbia and Charleston, so well worth the drive wherever you are in the state. But you can check out their online inventory, financing options, all that good stuff. Get all the info you need from ferrychevrolet.com, so go check them out.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome to anybody there in the chat, and thank you, of course, to those awesome sponsors. And Chris is over there. If you see him texting, dialing away over there, we're actually kind of going on the fly a little bit with this show. And I believe, Chris, we're going to be joined shortly by JC Shurburtt. Is that correct?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. That's what I'm efforting right now. We are all west because of how crazy this end of this week has been with everything. We are doing things, as you said, on the fly. And so we've been busy on our side. JC has been busy on his side, but we're going to grab him here for a few minutes before he has to run to talk. Who knows what we'll talk about? Probably some recruiting, some football, but probably also talk about what's been going on in the media landscape as we have joined forces in some ways now.
Yeah, and I want to get to this big official visit weekend. Chris, this is the first time you and I have popped on this week for the podcast, so we've got a couple of commitments to get to. But, yeah, for those who have not seen, the big picture part is just, hey, JC Shurburtt, Jamie Bradford, their team, the Big Spur brand, the Inside the Gamecocks brand, all those guys now under one umbrella. So if you are already a subscriber with us on Gamecock Central, you actually don't have to do really anything at all. Just keep coming to the site. Don't cancel your credit card and just keep showing up. And now instead of just getting, information, content, articles from us, you will get JC and Jamie and Rob. And, they've got some high school stuff that they're starting to build out as well. If you're more into like the high school football side of things, not just football though, from what I understand, I'll let them explain all that. But if you're a high school fan in the state of South Carolina, a lot of awesome stuff on the way there too, but all under that same subscription. I think something we've always told people, Shannon Terry and those guys, their game plan has always been maximize value for the customer. And this is a value add if you are a subscriber already. If you're not a subscriber on Gamecock Central, come on over, join the party. And now you have two iconic brands essentially in one.
Yep. Two iconic brands, actually two forums. If you want, there's certainly some carryover. We might be on JC's board some. He was just dropping a football notebook on ours, all going on the front page. So that's the cool thing about it, Wes. Like, I think let's be real in this. You and I are pretty cognizant. there's some Gamecock fans out there, the mean ones on Twitter, that don't like you or me or maybe both of us. And that's cool. If so,
There's
some
one
of
in
those
particular that just really doesn't like me, Chris.
some of those people don't like anybody, I'm convinced. But there are some people that maybe, I don't like Chris or I don't like Wes. I don't like either of them. I really like JC. Great. You can now check out JC on the same ecosystem that we're all in. If you happen to say, I don't really know JC or I don't like JC, but hey, Chris and Wes, I really like you. Come on for that. If you like everybody, which is what we hope, we all want to be a big happy family. Come on, check it out. See all of us. You get all of it for one price. There you got it. 3 months for $1 if you're not already a member. So we appreciate everybody's support. Appreciate everybody bearing with us as we get through the transition. But honestly, Wes, even though it's been busy, it's been pretty smooth just in terms of getting a lot of content up. And there's a lot going on, as you talked about at the beginning of the show. So there'll certainly be a lot to track throughout the summer, beginning with this very busy official visit season.
Yeah, man. So ultimately settled on, unless there are last minute changes. And let's just go ahead. We'll dive into the OV weekend. When JC hops on, we'll kind of call timeout, essentially.
Yep.
Dive into whatever he wants to talk about, and then we'll complete our thoughts on the OV weekend. But 11 official visitors. This is the first one of this cycle. So they're still going to have the 3 in June. This is the first time that they've decided, hey, we're going to do a big OV weekend in May as well. So kind of just trying to set the standard early with some of these guys, maybe some guys on campus who are already either making decisions or close to making decisions. And, Chris, I don't know if we'll go through all of them here on the show. We'll certainly go through all of them on GamecockCentral.com. But the guy that just keeps catching my attention and standing out has to be Fred Ards, just because you're talking about a national level prospect. You're talking about someone who, Rivals actually is a little bit higher. Charles Power, those guys, a little bit higher than the rest of the industry is. Having him as the number 7 edge prospect in the country. So talking about a guy's top 10 at his position. And, I think they're really selling him on, hey, come in. Dylan Stewart's in his final year of eligibility. There's going to be playing time to be had. And, this is really someone who, you look at the offer list, you look who else is after him. Like, this is a blue chip, true, like, big boy recruiting battle for a priority. Like, that's always a priority position, is the edge spot.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating to look at him, and there's a couple other recruitments, Wes, of not for this weekend per se, but summer official visits and just in this recruiting class. One thing that I have said also, but a lot of Gamecock fans say, we're not the Texas schools. We're not going to recruit like the Texas schools because of the money situation, right? Well, one thing that we know is South Carolina has invested very heavily in the NIL space. Frankly, they couldn't have done what they did in the last cycle, retention, portal, high school, freshmen. You couldn't have put together that class without that investment. The reason I bring that up, Fred Ards, another school that's been heavy on his list, Texas A&M. Texas A&M also involved with Joshua Dobson, the 5-star corner from Huff in North Carolina, former Catawba Ridge DB, and some others, frankly, that South Carolina is also recruiting. So they're getting in some big boy recruiting battles, which is the type of guys that you want to see ultimately in a class. You mentioned Dylan Stewart. That was a big time recruiting battle that you want. And the more of those types of guys you can stack, the better. But Ards is someone that A&M wants, Bama wants. I mean, he's got, that who's who offer list. And Gamecocks have done a really good job, laid a great foundation, and I think have a legitimate chance to finish that one off as well.
Yeah, so a bunch of other names we'll get to, but let's go ahead and bring them right now. Believe it or not, on your screen right now, our guy, JC Shurburtt. JC, welcome in, first of all, to the show, man, and welcome in to just this new meetings of the minds we have, all under the On3 umbrella. Looking forward to attacking this thing with you, man. And I was actually looking at Gamecock Central right now. I just kind of had a moment because I went to the homepage and there's a Gamecock Central logo. There's the Big Spur logo. and then there's an article from you, and then there's an article from Chris, all on the same homepage, and it's kind of had like a.
I don't think we've ever had the Gamecock Central logo. Chris and I have had bylines together back in the early days of the Big Spur.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how far technology's come since then, Chris. My gosh, that was an awful site to work on. With just behind the scenes, it broke a couple of times, just broke, Yeah. And I did write some things for Shoe for Gamecock Central while I was at Rivals. So my byline's been on there from Rivals, but yeah, it's a little surreal. And I think part of it is it came together kind of quickly. As far as finalizing everything and stuff like that. But, it's something I'm thrilled to be doing. And I think this just makes all the sense in the world for what the ultimate goal is, was just to create a, kind of like the name of the site overall, Gamecock Central. It's a hub for Gamecock fans. And that's always kind of been my dream in this space. And I think this is the best way to accomplish that.
Yeah, man. Chris, let me real quick. JC, from the moment we started working with Shannon, his vision was like all about value for subscribers. No matter what market you're in, we want to provide the best value. And some of that has been all the different newsbreakers and media guys he's added on the national side of things, like Nakos and Tipton with the basketball stuff, that whole crew. And I think it's pretty cool for the fans out there, where hopefully they're going to pay their same subscription like they always have, but be able to get access to, hey, we were just talking, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, we may not be your jam. Maybe JC is your flavor. Maybe we are your flavor. Whatever it is, you can pick and choose with that one login, one subscription, and most importantly, one hit on your credit card per year, per month.
No doubt. I mean, I filled up my truck the other day. Whew, Lord. I mean, it's people don't have unlimited money. And if you're a college sports fan, obviously there are a lot of different ways to spend your money to support your team and follow your team. Of course, Garnet Trust is one of those. And I want to give a quick plug to those guys, because I always do. But when it comes to consuming media too, you have so many streaming services. Newspapers are all behind a paywall. The access for information costs money. And I've always been a believer in business. I'm not one of these. I could never be like a private equity guy or someone that sits on a board that's watching the stock price. That doesn't care about his customers. I think about Southwest Airlines, which I used to fly all the time, and everything you love about the people loved about Southwest. You pick your own seat, no bag fees, all that. It's all gone because people want the stock price to go up for about 2 points. And I always think that the purpose of business, how you're successful, is to care about your customers. And I think they're our customers, and you want to give them you want to pack as much value as possible into what you're charging them, and still, of course, maintain the ability to make a living. You can't give it all away, but that's what I believe in, just from a business standpoint. Certainly with this fan base that I've been a part of my whole life, and consider them my extended family. When you can give back like that, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So I have 2 questions for you, JC, and I know we can't keep you too long, but
I got up until about 10, 11, 12 more minutes. It's
all
good.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time.
She can wait a little bit.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Obviously, this is not just a one-off. But my first question is, we got a question from Connor on X. Is Plano's PPG strictly JC's board? So I guess I'll just ask here and we can hash it out. Are Wes and I allowed to post on your board? You're allowed to post on ours because you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I, there's been a lot of questions about that today. All over the place. And the reason I took it with me, number one, 24/7 Sports, if I was going to be a part of it, ITG inside the Gamecocks was going to go back, their philosophy now, and there's nothing wrong with this, is to just brand everything 24/7 Sports. And so to me, I didn't feel comfortable with that part of it. And so when I purchased the assets, Some people accused me of selling the name Plano's PG to, I was like, to who, when I repurchased the assets, I wanted to take that with me because it's a memorial. It means a lot to me. It was my idea to do it. Plano was for those that don't know, Plano started as Plano Cock. He ran Plano's page 3, which in the 90s, when people were doing dial-up internet, right, on AOL, he had this Gamecock recruiting board. Like it wasn't really board. It was like a weird blog looking thing. Some of you out there, Clemson lurkers, maybe will remember Tiger Active Chat on TigerNet way back in the day, similar to that. And he passed away. He passed away right before Will Muschamp's first game. And his last post on the board said goodbye. And he just real quick, I think he had some kidney problems. He said, I'm going off dialysis. I will not be resuscitated. And the last thing he said was love the Gamecocks. And so our board was named the Palmetto Proving Grounds. And we couldn't fit those. Those were too long of words anyway. I don't know what I was thinking when I named it that. Chris was there. Some of my ideas back then were horrid. But I had the idea to do it. And I thought, well, if the idea is to bring the Big Spur over, which is the community too, then we need to make them feel at home. And so that's why it was named that. And that's why we brought it over. That said, as far as who can post there, Jack Veltri posted there today. So why wouldn't we have Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell posted there? Absolutely. You can do that. The thing I worry about, and eventually, you know what? If the fans want one big board, we'll just make it all TIF and move it over there, and we'll do something else to honor Plato, on the site. I don't mind that. I went back and forth with that, but in other markets, when you've had similar situations, I'll be clear, there's nothing else that's been done like this specifically in our business. Mm-hmm. But in other markets, when you had sites combining, the fans typically want to stay on their own board. And I thought, well, better be safe than sorry and stuff like that. But certainly, you guys, we're all part of the same team. And, and I'll clarify this too. It is one subscription. We're not in competition with one another. It's two brands, but, we're not, we don't get Big Spur subs and Gamecock Central. So it's all one on 3 South Carolina subs. So I'll clarify that too.
Yeah. Good stuff. Go ahead, Wes.
No, you go, Chris. You go.
Yeah, I got one more quick question for you, JC, and I kind of wanted to go because I want to make sure I get your take on this. One specific guy coming in this weekend, because Wes and I were just talking about this before you came on. Fred Ards, the 4-star edge out of Florida, Orlando Jones. The Gamecocks have laid a nice foundation there. He's one of 11 coming in this weekend. There's a bunch of guys we could talk about, but your thoughts on him as a player and Carolina's positioning there?
He's one of those guys that is was Florida defensive lineman. And sometimes when I was doing national recruiting, we'd kind of fall in love with every one of these guys. And they were all really, really good. And Fred Ards is a fantastic elite defensive end. Length, explosiveness. He's kind of he's not a Dylan Stewart. He's more of the taller, lankier guy. I compare everybody like that to Devin Taylor, but they're not. Devin was not as advanced as this guy when he came out. And I really love guys like this. Sometimes though, they don't pan out. They'll go to Florida State or whatever and it doesn't work. I don't see any of that in Ards, but that's the type of guy he is. This type of guy you want to sign. I think I said all that just to make clear that he is a 4 or 5-star guy, but he's developmental. Julian Walker at the same stage was what I would consider to be developmental, and he developed before he ever got to Carolina. And now he's a grown man. So it happens at different times. So I want to clarify that first. As far as his recruitment goes, Florida seems to be, every time that they get a new coach, they're winning the national championship again, and they have all this recruiting momentum. And so Florida, maybe he's the team there, but I know that Deion Barnes has a good relationship with him, and I know he generally likes South Carolina. And with this staff, man, you remember Chris back in the day, and Wes, kid would visit Florida that's from Florida or have Florida in the mix, you can just write him off. You're not beating him,
Yeah.
But now, this staff, they just got a commitment from a kid from Atlanta over Alabama and Georgia. So, I mean, it's different with the portal and NIL, but it's a different world, and these guys can recruit. So I wouldn't count it out. I do know he's a guy that they really, really like and that they've had high on their board for a while. There is some confidence there. Just looking at the big picture, I think a great visit could do it, and they need to have a great visit. But that would be a fantastic pickup on top of Big John Archer, who's one of my favorite recruits in this class this past week. So it's the more you can restock the D line, the better your chances are of having a successful program.
Well, and JC seems like this staff, there's always a guy or two each cycle nationally that South Carolina's in a little better place with than anybody gives them credit for. And sometimes they get that guy and they get a Dylan Stewart. Sometimes they miss. Who was the kid that went to Auburn a couple of years ago, Chris?
Jared Smith.
Yeah. But they were in it to the very end type. There's always a guy or two with Beamer in this staff, and Deion Barnes has stepped right in, I think, in place of Sterling Lucas and done some of those same things. But real quick, man, you mentioned Archer. I feel like you and Bartow were the first guys who used to talk about D-line heaven, I feel like. So I got to let you tell us about Archer before you get out of here, as Travian, the last 2 cycles now, is breaking into the state of North Carolina and stealing their defensive linemen.
Yeah, shameless plug. I have an article outlining Travian, North Carolina development recruiting that will be on the site, coming up in the near future, probably tomorrow. Okay, so every cycle for me, because I'm old and I've been through a million of them, I get really, really excited. And how I can tell I'm excited, I get nervous about it. I sweat it. Every little update, I'll get not angry, but frustrated when somebody is out of the market or a national guy just like lists brand name schools. And I know Carolina's in it more. And then I get nervous, unfortunately, last year it was Tamarian Watkins, because somebody asked me when it looked like Watkins was a lock, what was the one recruit that Carolina just can't lose, in your opinion? I said Watkins. And there's a why. It's like, because I love him and I'm nervous about losing him. And sure enough, I should have never said that. Sure enough, Texas A&M goes and snags the guy. Archer was that guy this year. And it's for the reasons you mentioned, Wes. Geography matters when you're trying to figure out trends and stuff. The Carolinas have a very high hit rate with defensive linemen. And then specifically in the case of North Carolina, it's a state with 11 million people. And so their numbers grow all the time. And they have, I'm not going to say better quality defensive linemen than South Carolina, but they have more of them. And there's every year, if you could go up there and get 2, like Travian Robertson's doing right now, you're going to have a good defensive line from now through eternity. I mean, it's just a fact. And then Fayetteville has always been a mystery to me, because they'll have those studs that come out, and it's not that far from the University of South Carolina, but they hadn't really broken. I think Brad Edwards was the last notable guy from Fayetteville. I'm probably missing a handful, but he was back in the 80s. So I looked at it. I saw South Carolina was leading. I checked around. They felt like they were in good shape. And then where did he visit? Florida. And so I got a little nervous, but it was a welcomed development when I saw that he did commit. What I like about him is, number one, freak production, 60 tackles for loss or whatever last year. That's insane for a D tackle. And how he does it, he's really quick off the ball and explosive, naturally strong, doesn't look like a junior in high school out there playing. Looks like he's sophomore at Carolina. And then the feedback I've gotten on him is he's like a lot of the guys they bring into this program, this first-class kid, this hard worker. If you're going to play for Travian Robertson as what's his name, Xavion Hardy found out last year, and Travian wasn't even there half the year. So, that tells you something. You're just not going to play no matter how good you are if you don't get in there and do the work. He's just like Brad Lawing was when he was here. Rest in peace to him. But I tell you this right now, man, that excited me when I saw that. And you're right, Chris, the third straight three. I don't know if it's how you define consecutive, but right now, last 2 cycles, South Carolina's gotten 3 blue chip defensive tackles out of North Carolina. And then you want some instant proof of proof of concept when it comes to recruiting that state. Look at Noah Clark. I thought, I was like so happy they got Noah Clark right. I didn't see him having the spring he had. And people talk about him reshaping. He didn't really reshape. He's just a freak. I'm trying hard not to compare him to Dexter Lawrence because I'll get clowned. Because Dexter Lawrence is one of the best big old defensive tackles I've ever seen. I sort of like what Caleb Herring says. Jordan Davis. I mean, we can go with the pro comparisons for now, and not a freshman that came in and wrecked college football like Dexter Lawrence did. But man, oh man, so there's proof of concept with North Carolina D tackles. So I didn't mean to go on and on about him, but as you can tell, there's a handful of guys that fire me up. He fired me up.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, man. That was good. I had a feeling if we got you talking about Carolina defensive linemen that you'd get a little fired up. So
I like, man, that's my position. I like that position. You know,
hey, we're fired up about this thing moving forward, man. Excited to be on the same team with you again, JC. I know you got to hop off here, but we'll sit here and do a long form one sometime, man, if you want to soon, and just talk about all these guys and talk about some former guys and just name random Gamecocks and all that stuff. So looking forward to it, man. You got any plans to celebrate tonight, or what are you and the missus up to?
No, my wife's birthday's this weekend, but like when you launch something, you know, like you guys got the established part. I got to kind of, you know, herd the cats a little bit this weekend. So I'm going to work at my wife's birthday's Sunday, but she's got some friends that are going to take her to this 1980s cover band concert. Her and the girls are going to, so I'll be around watching the house.
Okay, cool, man. Well, appreciate it again, JC. Like I said, man, looking forward to it. And we'll definitely do this again very, very soon. And everybody listening, come on over. One subscription, everybody you see here and more, all of our content, all under that one sub. So looking forward to it, JC.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure, guys. Y'all be good. Take care.
All right, thanks, man. Have a good weekend. That's JC Shurburtt joining us here on GC Live. I guess technically, Chris, for the first time ever.
It was first time ever. Got JC all fired up about defensive linemen, Wes. Goodness.
Well, I'm telling you, I never heard that D-line heaven thing until way back in the day. Him and Bartow would always talk about that. And I mean, let's just continue over from that, man, as we're here at kind of the halfway point. The commitment of Archer, I want to get into the other guys that have announced as well, but that was one, you know, what was it, about a month ago? I want to say, about exactly a month ago or so. You and I heard, like, our ears sort of perked up a little bit because we heard, hey, South Carolina might be the leader there. And you're like, oh, okay, all right. And so they got that one done. That's the thing about recruiting. You can be the leader in March or April. Sometimes it doesn't matter. When can you get it done? You know what I'm saying? So I thought this one was about getting it done because, as JC mentioned, Florida involved, Auburn involved. Like there's big boy, just kind of traditional programs involved here. But you turn on the film, man, and you do see just that big, physical, but still pretty light on their feet. Kind of like Noah Clark in the sense that I look at both those guys. They're big enough, strong enough, it looks like, to be true, like, zero techniques or one techniques. Like, you're inside, you're eating blocks, you're eating double teams, but they're also still athletic and able to move their feet and able to chase from the backside and do all these different things where you don't always see that from, like, a nose tackle.
Yeah. JC kind of hit on this earlier, talking about Travion's coaching style. I knew about John Archer. I think he already had a Carolina offer last summer at camp, but I remember watching him at camp and going, okay, this is a big kid. This is a talented kid. And the other thing that really stood out is he looked technically sound, coachable, and you could tell sitting there watching, Travion Robertson really liked what he saw. And so that's why camp's so important, for anybody. Camp's just, they're out there in helmets and no pads. Every college coach out there will tell you, I want to see a kid in camp, because in addition to just the movement ability, checking the size. You want to see, are they coachable? And you're going to get a good feel for that. How do they compete? Travian is not going to put up with, prima donna behavior at the defensive tackle position. He wants guys like the ones that he's brought in. And in his time at Carolina West, you got to say he's had a pretty good track record of developing guys. Last year, one of the biggest question marks on the team ended up being a very solid position. He ended up taking Nick Barrett from a guy who was not on an NFL draft radar to a draft pick. And Gabe Brownlow-Dendy started realizing his potential. And this year, we've heard some of Shane Beamer's even public comments about this. They feel really good about where that room is. So, I think big pickup for them in more ways than one, and continues to signal them, getting talent out of the state of North Carolina. Yes, which had been a problem for a while, but continuing to stack talent at the defensive tackle position from the high school ranks. Yeah, you're probably going to go in there, get some guys out of the portal. Carolina's done that plenty, but you also have to have some young guys in there to develop. And so John Archer will be the latest in that process.
Great name too, by the way, John Archer. Like that just sounds like a bad dude.
All business. Yeah.
Yeah. He feels like the type maybe in a few years will get drafted and then do like Reuben Bain and just snatch the helmet or snatch the hat off the stand and not even take his selfie he's supposed to take because he's got no time for this BS. Just snatch it, keep walking, shake a hand, and go hit a quarterback type guy like that. I don't know, just the great fit all the way around. I feel like in terms of that. Let's talk quickly, Chris, about South Carolina's most recent commitment, that being DJ Huggins, who announced yesterday. And another one, I feel like you hear all these names, guys get offers, et cetera, et cetera. And you're always kind of figure out, all right, where's the mutual interest at? Who are the guys we really need to be tracking? And it feels like, again, maybe a month or so ago, we kind of heard, hey, watch out for DJ Huggins. Maybe a 3-star, but you kind of get the sense the staff had him higher on the board than that ranking may suggest. And, he set the OVs. You thought this was going to be kind of maybe he's going to take visits to make a decision, but then goes ahead, commits. Gamecocks beat out Georgia, beat out Alabama, and really get a guy that I think was kind of a priority for Mike Furry. And once again, Furry, you want to talk about across some cycles here now, man. Across the last few cycles, you're talking about just adding, I think, difference-making talent through the high school ranks and kind of setting that position to a spot where, yes, you may supplement with the portal, but you're not going to have to just build it through the portal. And sounds like Furry took, I guess, Shane Beamer at heart when he got hired, and Beamer said, hey, we haven't recruited the high school ranks well enough for this position. I think you can check that box.
Yeah, and latest example of that, he Huggins, not the biggest guy. Like Carolina's recruited under Furry a lot of different body types, and skill sets. There's some smaller, speedier guys. There's some, bigger guys in there and kind of in between. Huggins kind of reminds me from a physical standpoint in terms of the height and the frame, a little bit like Jaden Sellers, maybe a little bit more slight even. I mean, he's 5'11", 170. That's about what Jaden actually was at one point in the high school process. I think he bulked up a little bit more before he got to South Carolina, but kind of similar body type and maybe even a little carryover in the play style. Obviously at that size, that's not a jump ball, 50-50 ball, Alshon Jeffrey type receiver. But what he is, quick, slippery, explosive in the open field. Talked to some people familiar with him this morning just to kind of get some takes. And those are some of the words that came up, some of the terms that came up. He caught, close to 70 balls last year, 12 touchdowns, had about 1,100 yards. So was a productive high school player who, is pretty sudden in his movements. He's a quick route runner. He's pretty good in the open field too. And you're right, a priority for Mike Furry, who had a really nice offer list too.
Yeah. So like I said, man, I said early on, I don't know if we'll get through all 11 guys that are coming in this weekend. Seeing what time it is right now, I can actually guarantee we're not going to get through all of them. So I'm going to tell everybody, come on over. Gamecock Central, your one subscription now on 3. You're going to get JC, Jamie Bradford, that whole team as well, all under that too. We're going to go through a few more guys before we get out of here. But if you want to read about all of them, I promise at some point I'm going to actually hit publish on this breakdown of all 11 guys who are coming in this weekend. And some of it is a little bit more towards the intel side. Some of them it's more just like, hey, here are the top 4, here are the top 5. These are the teams involved, and we'll see what happens after this weekend. Because, Chris, I feel like with several of these guys, you're kind of looking at it like, hey, they may be closer to deciding than others. And then for some of these kids, you look and they're 4 or 5, OV set, and you're going, all right, this is just the first step in what could be a fairly long process. Or it's more like, hey, there may be some ground to make up if you were South Carolina. Let's go through a couple of guys that I think they're also, in addition to Ards, also in pretty good shape with. Kennedy Green, Douglas County, Mableton, Georgia, 4-star safety. Another example of Torian Gray just like getting in on a guy early, making him feel like a priority, making him feel wanted, building that relationship. And he's one that's kind of had Carolina as a public leader, man, for some time. I'll be very curious. Nebraska is apparently heavily involved too. Supposed to take an OV there. I'll be pretty intrigued to see if he goes ahead and just, hey, I got everything I want here. Maybe he locks it in this weekend potentially.
Yeah, and I think I would add, and you might have gone through this category and I dismissed it, but if not, I was going to add a category in there of some guys that might have other OVs scheduled this summer that can you go ahead and shut them down, right? Mm-hmm. Like a John Archer, like a DJ Huggins, who did it before they even got on campus. But for some of these guys, a Kennedy Green, can you get them in? Can they see what they need to see to say, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to go anywhere else. I feel good about everything that I've seen, and shut him down. So he's one longtime target, 4-star. Rivals Industry Ranking has him number 262 in the country. So he would be just outside that. I still think about the Rivals 250 West. We don't have that anymore. I guess we have the On 300. Do we still have the On 300? Is it the Rivals 300?
We have the Rivals 300, Chris.
We have the Rivals 300. My apologies. Since we've expanded. So he's in the Rivals 300, 6'1", 200 pounds. Another guy, we were talking about camp with John Archer. Carolina's seen this guy in camp too. He's been on campus multiple times. There's a really high comfort level. So I do think he's one of the ones that, if the question is, hey, which couple or few guys could you see maybe just leaving the weekend and saying, I'm done? He would be a candidate for me.
And yet another category, Chris, I would say is probably guys that are highly interested in South Carolina. How much does South Carolina push for that commitment? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're taking an OV, they have interest in you, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But they're still a board, right? And so does their interest level at a certain price point meet what you're looking for, too, frankly, is going to be a big part of it these days. So I think lots of different – that's why I think you have to be careful about not calling, like, anybody a lock, even if they're heavy lean. There could be guys that are, hey, South Carolina's out front. They're my favorite. And it may be that South Carolina has other guys ahead of them and they fill up the position. So always just little twists and turns, I think, with some of this stuff. But should be a weekend where maybe it has a little bit of everything. So Carolina making some move with some guys, Carolina potentially adding a couple of commits. And Chris, I think it's a really, really big weekend for Carolina with Seth Tillman, because I feel like we know now that they've recruited well on the defensive line. So you're going to be fine at that position overall, but to have a defensive lineman in your state, to have a defensive lineman at South Point, like a place that's been good to you over the years, a place that always has talent. You don't want Georgia to come into your state or Clemson to come into a territory that's been good to you and land this guy. I feel like with Tillman, it's been a little bit quiet on the Gamecock end. You know what I'm saying? So can you just blow him away this weekend and leave feeling a lot better about where you stand? I think it's the thing that I'm kind of looking for. Like there's not enough buzz around Carolina and Tillman for me to feel like they're the favorite there right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's one that you get this, like, two things. That one is more quiet overall. Like, just talking to some other people in the industry, there's not this great sense of exactly what he's going to do. It's just more quiet overall. But what we do have to go on is that Carolina's probably got some work to do to catch up, I think, to Georgia, to Clemson. Those schools, it might, would you agree, Wes? I mean, might be fair to say that those two are maybe ahead of the Gamecocks coming into this thing, or maybe not as quick. I mean, I don't know if you can say it for sure.
That's my vibe. Now, some of that
Vibe
on that one, that's some of that I'm leaning on Chad and Wilt Fong and you know.
Yeah. It's kind of a vibe on our end too, but that's why you bring in guys for visits. You know, can you turn things around, however, to where you're leaving that week and say, okay, now we're in this thing, or we've solidified our position. You know, that's kind of what you want to hear. Because again, you hit on it. This is a guy from a really talent-rich school, talent-rich area that's been good to you. You'd love to keep him in state because that's where, you know, coaches talk about it all the time. That's where it starts, in the state of South Carolina. You'll put together a pretty good D-line class, but you'd love to have this guy because he could be a big part of it.
And I didn't get to tell this story when JC was here. It would have been fitting, but you know, he had to get off here. But a little bit related, Tamarian Watkins, Rock Hill guy, obviously Northwestern, not South Point, but going to A&M. I was kind of, so Chad Simmons and I were talking last year, and Chad was the first one to tell me, like, dude, I'm hearing some Texas A&M buzz here. And I was like, that's not right. He's like, I don't know, man. Like, I really feel like there is some real A&M talk here. I was like, what exactly have you heard? And then we kind of talked through it, and I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, that sounds legit. Now, I would still be surprised, but that does sound legit. And sure enough, you know, it ended up being right. So, you know, they've done such a good job under Beamer in state. Like, I feel like they probably feel like, man, you don't want to just start any kind of vibes of guys in the Rock Hill area going to A&M, going to Georgia, just kind of, you know, being dispersed everywhere. Like, you want to keep them at home. Obviously, they got Currents, you know, as probably the highest rated guy out of that area, but they wanted Currents and Watkins last year. So will be pretty interesting to see where that one goes, I think. And just like you said, that the fact that it's pretty daggum quiet. There's some other guys on here that I feel like we don't necessarily, like Dewey Young, 4-star out of Michigan. I don't really have a great feel. Like, not saying I don't have a great feel for South Carolina's chances. I'm saying literally I don't have a great feel for where that recruitment is right now. I think we'll know more after this weekend. Stafford Willis, the 3-star offensive tackle from Alabama. That's someone fairly recent offer for South Carolina. Now, he visited a couple of times in the spring, so there's obviously interest, but where does that one go? We'll see. Judah Lancaster, Brentwood Academy, Brentwood, Tennessee, 3-star tight end. Chris, that's someone I think Gamecock fans need to sort of familiarize themselves with. Someone that maybe we haven't talked about enough, and feels like Carolina has quite a bit of momentum going into the weekend on that one.
Yep, 6'4", 210 pounds. A guy that began his high school career in a different state, was at IMG, and now in Brentwood in Tennessee, and has clearly over the last, I don't know, few weeks, Wes, you just continue to see and hear some things where you go, all right, that seems to really be the guy that they're zeroing in on at the tight end position. Been a guy that the staff's visited. There's been a lot of contact there. I think everything has been building up to this visit. I'm picking up a lot of kind of anticipation internally on this visit, with the thought that if it goes well, could be one that you end up closing out, and he could end up being the guy in this class. So we'll see. But he's, we were talking earlier about which guys are you circling, as candidates to do something more quickly than the end of summer or late this year. Kennedy Green's one. He's also one.
For sure. For sure. Anybody else you want to hit on, Chris?
Let me say a couple things just real quickly here. So looking at the list this weekend, and by the way, Carolina's close to like 40 guys overall for the summer. So this will be a very important visit. I think Desmond Malpress is interesting at edge because he's a guy that's publicly named South Carolina his leader, 4-star guy. We know South Carolina's probably going to be very choosy at edge in this class. So they've got 2 coming in this weekend, and Ards and Malpress. That's something to watch. The other thing that, not to breeze past any of the other guys, definitely, Wes, when you get your piece published, everybody needs to go check that out on GamecockCentral.com. Braden Tyson at running back is another one, because there's Carolina, Stan Drayton, they're juggling a few different options at running back. And I think the vibe with Braden Tyson, the 4-star from Georgia, 6'1", 215 pounds, could kind of set the agenda, so to speak, to where things go from here, depending on how that trip goes. So that's another one that I'm very interested to hear more about.
Yeah, that one, and I'll lean on Chad on this one. There's some Miami talk there all of a sudden. So, I kind of thought Braden Tyson would probably be going to Georgia just in the end, but it's a different world, man. It's a different world. Georgia, I don't know anything about what his top 3 reasons are for where he's going to choose. I'm not saying he's just bag chasing, but I'm talking in general. Georgia recruiting, it's a little bit different than it was before we got in this era. And, those guys just don't really believe in overpaying for high school guys, essentially. So it does open up the state of Georgia a little bit more than it was. If there's a player that a particular team says, hey, we love this guy, we want this guy, we're gonna make them an offer they can't refuse, so to speak. That's just where we are, man. So that one, there are, to your point, a lot of running backs that could end up in this class. Like picking out the 2, we shall see. Now, David Segarra from right down the, not right down the road, but in state, and then I think he's someone they would love to have, like is kind of a top of the board type player as well, type talent. So that position could go a number of ways, to your point. But maybe after this weekend, Chris, OVs typically don't go poorly, but maybe after this weekend, we will have an idea of like, oh, Carolina's really in it there, or some of these other guys are much more likely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll have a better feel and some clarity, and this is just the first weekend. There's several others. Like I said, there's probably 35 guys on the OV list overall. And so that's a lot of recruitments to track and juggle. That list could obviously grow between now and then for summer OVs. So definitely will be tracking all of it on GamecockCentral.com. Come check us out.
Yeah, man, it's been a fun day, but dude, it's been a long day. So
It has been.
Let's close this thing out. Come on over, man. If you're not on our site, if you're not a member, this I dare say this is actually the best deal you're going to get for a long time in terms of the price. Like, don't you think I can probably accurately say that, Chris? Like, they don't really do the 3 months for $1 thing,
Yeah,
unless there's something big has happened. So there will be other deals. I'm not lying to you. I'm not saying there won't be other deals, but 3 months for $1. Our corporate overlords do not give this often at all. So if you've been thinking about coming over to Gamecock Central, then come on over and you're getting just added value. I mean, at this point, you got 33 cents a month for the next 3 months. So come check us out. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to hit up me and Chris. And actually, dude, I know you got to go, but do you need to tell everybody about our friends at ATSCO?
Yeah, let's tell everybody about our friends over at ATSCO, ATSKO.com as we close things out here on the show. Lee Wiles running the show over there. Great friend of the show. ATSCO has all sorts of stuff. I mean, that's just the best way to describe it. They've been around forever. Hunting, waterproofing, personal care, animal care, outdoor products as well. They've got UV control, odor control, laundry care. They've got a variety of outdoor products. They've got UV killer, sport wash, snow seal. If you're an outdoorsman, you absolutely need to go because you're going to be able to find something, a product that you may need. Check them out, ATSKO.com.
All right, guys. Appreciate you as always. For Chris, I'm Wes. And for JC, haven't said that on this show ever. Great to have JC on and great to have him on our network now on Gamecock Central and on 3. But yeah, y'all have a great weekend. Enjoyed it as always. Appreciate everybody who was there in the comments. Appreciate you at home watching, listening, however it is you listen to your podcast. Hit like, review, subscribe, all the buttons, and we'll see you very, very soon. Probably Monday to talk about what has happened over the weekend. Thank y'all. Have a good one.